All right. We have a lot to get through, so I figured we can get started now. I'm Jon Hussey. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing Strategy within External Relations in the online strategy team. This training session is to go over search engine optimization, and I try to take a pretty comprehensive look at search engine optimization, not just in Drupal, but what you can do outside of Drupal as well, and some of the trends we're seeing in Google and search in general over the last 6 months to a year. So, and please, SEO is a complicated thing. I tried to cut out as many of the buzzwords as I could, but if you have questions, just throw the questions at me as they come up. I prefer to work in that way rather than you to not get a term or to miss something and get behind here. So just throw questions at me as they come up. So if you search SEO definition in Google right now, this is the result you get. It's actually kind of an outdated result because it comes from Wikipedia. Search engine optimization is the process of affecting the visibility of a website or web page in search engines' natural or unpaid organic search results. That is the definition, but it is a lot more complicated than that nowadays. It used to be you just added keywords and in your metadata, and you tried to use those keywords in your content, and you were good. It's far more complicated now. The new definition of SEO, and this comes from linchpinseo.com. There are a lot of people trying to write a new definition for SEO, and this is probably the best that I've seen. So it's to create targeted and valuable experiences and content to earn high-value traffic. And it's to increase conversions and user satisfaction by creating an environment that allows the user to connect directly with the content that best matches their intent. So the key to that is knowing your users. So knowing what they're looking for and giving them content that matches what they're looking for. And giving them content not just on your website, but on social media, and giving them timely content that they're looking for. So as we dig deeper into that, you have to understand your users. You have to understand where they're searching and how they search, what they're searching for. You have to do your keyword research. You have to optimize your metadata, which is on the back end of Drupal or whatever website you're using. And you have to provide valuable content on the page that you're linking them to. And it has to include all of those keywords. Finally, it should be brand focused and keyword optimized when you're posting on social media as well, and be content that your users are interested in. Now, that's a lot, and that's what we're going to go throughout this presentation and break each chunk up so we can dig a little deeper. So 2 years ago, when I created an SEO training page on the online strategy site, which is onlinestrategy.gwu.edu. This came from what used to be SEOmoz.com, which is now moz.com, and is a great resource for any SEO knowledge, including I'd recommend you download their Beginner's Guide to SEO PDF. It's an excellent and thorough.
Is that M-O-Z?
M-O-Z, yeah. It's an excellent, thorough document. So just 2 years ago, when I created that page, this is the graphic they had for what an optimized page looked like. And that really covered having a page title in the metadata that covered your keywords. It had your URL had your keywords. The meta description, while some people will tell you isn't important to crawlers, to bots, to Google, is actually your prime piece of marketing. If you think of somebody who searches and they get the result, George Washington University, the description is the first piece of content they see beneath the URL. So that's your first piece of marketing. It's like any ad that you might write content for. Headlines, subheads, and image tags are also very important on any given page in your site. So that's what it used to look like. 2 years later, they've updated that graphic, and this is what it looks like now. All of this I'll share in PDF form, and we'll put the video of this entire tutorial up online. So you can look at this more closely, but I want to break it apart because There are some really key points here. As you can see, it's far more complex, but it's really about paying attention to the details here, and there are lots of details to look at. So the most important is your keywords. You have to think like your users, so know who your users are and know what they're searching for and what their intent is when they come to your site. And we'll go through some of the tools that you use to do keyword research, and that includes Google products. So Google Trends, your own Google Analytics, which should be installed if you're in Drupal, or if you're not, I'd recommend you install it. And that allows you to see what they're actually searching for on your site, or how they reach your site through keywords. And then all your content. So you want your keywords, you want to know the keywords they're using and the intent of your users. You want those keyword phrases to be in your metadata, but most importantly, on your site. It should be in your title, it should be in your headlines, in your subheads, and throughout the page. I'm going to continue to talk about those little details because a lot of times you come up with the content for a page, you write it, you've crafted it over a while, and you publish it and you forget that you should be using those same keywords in your headlines, in your metadata, and everywhere across the site. So you'd always want to, I'd recommend actually just putting your keywords when you know in a given time what those keywords would be, up on your cube or somewhere where you can always reference them until you get in the habit of using them regularly. This is where SEO has gotten far more complicated over the last 2 years. They're looking far more at stuff like this: uniquely valuable. Does the page provide authentic, obvious value beyond self-promotion? Does the content stand apart from the crowd? And does it have text and images and multimedia? These are the kinds of things that they're kind of fueled by more and more people using social media and feeling like they can filter at all the content they want and only pay attention to the stuff that really interests them. The web is moving in that direction, and thus SEO has had to move in that direction as well. So Google has updated their algorithm several times over the last 3 years, and it's giving more weight to social media. It's giving more weight to the content that users are looking for as opposed to just metadata. Also, UX is a huge part of that, user experience. So can your website be viewed on a mobile phone? Is it easy to scan the page? So do you have subheads? Are you using bullets and lists? Are you making it easy for a user to move around on the page? Finally, and this is a tricky one, but is it a nice design? Is it clean? Is it easy to use? And the other pieces that they've now added, some of it Drupal has you covered. So if you're in Drupal, crawler bots can access all content on Drupal, so you're fine there. It's multi-device ready. We are responsive, so that is already covered. Some of the things that Drupal has covered but will require you to do some SEO work are metadata and social networking. So if we look at social networks, the share buttons are there. You can embed your Twitter feed, etc. But it's more about your SEO work in providing valuable content on social media. We always find that social media is particularly effective. We get the most engagement if it's visual, and we find that we get the most engagement if it's timely. So knowing what your users are looking for, again, and what time of year they're looking for them for certain content, and bring that content to the top of your website. So that might require an editorial calendar or something along those lines, but really understanding exactly what your users are looking for at a given time and providing that valuable content to them. The other piece that requires your SEO work is really the metadata, and I'll get into how you can set that up in Drupal and a little bit more detail about what's important. But a strong description, as I said earlier, is probably your most important piece of marketing. And I'll show a couple search results so you can see just how valuable that is. And it should inspire people to click on it just by reading it. And Drupal has some of the other pieces covered. So markup, you never have to worry about that kind of stuff. So that's sort of the first part of the presentation, but you can't really, before I jump into the broader education landscape so you can understand how to do SEO, knowing how our users are behaving on Google, any questions on what I've covered so far? Okay. So every quarter, Google puts out their education search analysis, and they put it out in a annoying Google way, which is on a Google Hangout. And then they post it as a YouTube video, a 35-minute YouTube video. So if you have 35 minutes, it's worth a watch, but I tried to boil this down a little bit to the key things that I found from the most recent analysis. So this is growth year over year by quarter of education searches. So people searching for any higher ed related topic. That might be a degree, a program, anything higher ed related. So you'll see there's been growth every quarter, year over year, until the first quarter of 2014. There was no growth for the first time in 2 years. That is for education, like overall education-related searches year over year. What's interesting is for branded searches, there was no growth. But for non-branded searches, there was 2% growth year over year. So what that means is people they're not necessarily attached to a given school or college. They're searching more generally. So that's something to be aware of as you start optimizing your site for the way people are searching right now. They're searching for things like program. So they'll find, you've seen 2% growth in nursing, political science, business for specific programs, 2% growth for things like online education, universities in Washington, D.C., other general searches like that, and then 1% growth by program, PhD, master's, bachelor's. There's also been huge growth in what you'd expect there to be huge growth in, how to pay for college, stuff that's financially related, 16% growth on financial issues, and then 9% growth on the time it's going to take. So those are the key questions that users interested in higher education are asking, and it's good to know what they're looking for. There's a little bit more data in the analysis that shows the certain programs that are growing and others that are falling. So for the first time ever since Google's been doing this, the MBA is not #1 in search for degrees. A bachelor's degree just surpassed MBA for the first time ever. So to get started in SEO, you really have to do your keyword research. And the first thing I'd recommend is that because our GW accounts you're not able to use Google Analytics with our GW accounts, and you're not able to use Google Keyword Planner because it's attached to AdWords, to create an Office Gmail account. That way, if somebody leaves, they don't leave with all your data and all your info. So create an Office Gmail, and then you can use these 3 tools. Actually, Google Trends is open to anybody, but Google Trends, Google Keyword Planner, and Google Analytics will be really helpful tools in finding the keywords that your users are interested in. Google Trends is one I use relatively regularly for our SEO as a university. What you'll see here is a search in Google Trends for the last 2 years for the keyword phrases DC colleges, universities in DC, Washington, D.C. schools, Washington, D.C. colleges, and college in D.C. So those are all keyword phrases that we know people use. And of note here is that Google is moving far more towards geolocated searches. They saw that as a trend, and they've built out, if you look in your Google search results, it behaves differently if you've put in a geo tag of some sort. So if you've mentioned a city or a state, the search results are different. So I'll show you what that looks like. So we've made a real focus in these keyword phrases, but you can see, you can get a chart to look at the volume of keyword traffic via these phrases, and then it also will spit out some other recommendations based on the keywords that you put in. Google Keyword Planner, which is part of AdWords, is another great tool to find keywords related to your content. So it's pretty easy to set up. You can pick one or a series of keyword phrases or keywords, your industry, and then it will spit out a number of different options and keyword groups that you might be able to use. And using this, you don't have to pick them all. You can just go through and look at what keywords and keyword phrases you think would work. But you get to see the average monthly searches with those keywords and what it might cost you should you want to advertise with those keywords. Finally, Google Analytics used to be your best tool because you weren't just looking at general topics, or you weren't looking at general users, you were looking at your users, people who did find your website via Google or Bing or any of the search engines. I say used to because you'll see there at the top it says not provided as the #1 result, with 80% of the traffic showing up as not provided. That happened when most people started logging into, or are always logged into Gmail, and part of privacy, they started blocking keywords. So 80% of the traffic, it blocks the keywords. This still is valuable because you get to see the people who didn't block it, who weren't logged in, you get to see the keywords they used to find your site. So that gives you an idea about how to do your keyword research. As you do that keyword research, and I'd recommend you do it on a semi-regular basis to understand if things are moving, or especially if, in Google Analytics, there's now a live, or there has been for about a year now, real-time data. So you can see at any given time what people are searching. But it's good to know at any given time what trends there are on your content as well. So once you know those keywords and you're aware of them as you are working on your website, these are the metadata tags that you want to pay attention to in Drupal or whatever content management system you're in if you're not in Drupal. Bless you. I went over them, but you want to, your page title, your page URL, your page description, image tags, and then metadata keywords are what you always want to think about while you're creating pages in Drupal. So I'm going to exit out of the presentation and bring you through setting that up in a Drupal site. Any questions while I get this set up? Okay, so within Drupal, only site admins will have the right to do this, but you can set global settings on your Drupal site. It's under Configuration, Search and Metadata, Meta Tags, and Defaults. And this is the metadata module we added about 1.5 years ago. And we found that our search engine optimization, or our search results have actually drastically improved based on us making sure we have this data throughout the site. So there are global settings and then global front page settings that an editor can edit. For the university as a whole, here's a look at how it's set up. We have, right now the site is set to always have the George Washington University and Washington, D.C. within the page title. If anybody's really observant, you'll notice that Washington, D.C. isn't currently appearing, but that's a bug within Drupal that will be fixed. But the way it's set up currently is if you create a page, it will automatically have that page titles in there, and then the site name in there, followed by what we've set up globally, George Washington University, Washington, D.C. And again, getting the location in there is key because we know people search D.C. Our keywords are also, some of our main keywords are also globally set within the site. But you can edit global settings by clicking Edit over in the right-hand side and adding a global description for your site and adding your own keywords on top of these. Any questions on that? Okay. So then on a page-by-page basis, I'll use our SEO page as an example. If you're in the, when you're in the site, you want to look at, obviously your title should be keyword optimized, carrying your most important keywords in the title itself, and especially front-loaded. You also want to, as you move down the site, if you add an image to the site, you always want to think about your keywords when you add an alt tag to the page, so, or to the photo. So let me grab a photo. When I add that image, and it's now a needed field within here, you can't publish a page without putting in an alt text. A lot of times people will, like I said before, you get all that content in there and you just want to publish the page. This is the little stuff, but it's the little stuff that actually makes a huge difference. So adding an alt title here that is keyword optimized and related to the photo you added. You can't just put a photo in that has nothing to do with your main keyword and write just your keywords. It has to make sense. People used to game the system by doing that kind of stuff, but Google's smarter than that now. So make sure you add your alt text and make it relevant. And then as you move down, there is, at the bottom of the page, you'll see the meta tag module. And here's where, on a page-by-page basis, you can click meta tags, and you can edit. Don't edit this part. We like that part. But you can edit your site name and your page title here if you want it to be something different than what is appearing by default. You can also add a description for that page so that if a user reaches that page via Google or any other search engine, you'll have a custom description that appears there. And if you have additional keywords you want to put in there, you can do that as well. Yeah?
Is there a limit to the number of keywords you should include?
Yeah, to be honest, I shouldn't even say, Google doesn't really care about these keywords as much anymore, so I would not fill it with 1 million keywords. For me, it's more a matter of habit, making sure I'm always thinking of the keywords and getting them in there, just so I'm thinking on a regular basis on every page what my important keywords are. So I wouldn't go more than 15 keywords. And it is important, sorry, and I can't believe I left this out, but writing your description, you want to keep it to 65 characters total. This is why, I go back to social media, that Twitter has trained everybody to write short, and you should basically stick to that because you don't have that many characters to work with when it comes to SEO as well. If you look in a Google result, you'll just get the ellipses at the end if you went beyond that number of keywords. And that's why you also want to front load your really important keywords in your description as well. Any questions on setting that up in Drupal?
And
Andy?
when you're talking about page title, is that the title you put in when you're building the content, or is it if you override the title using the customized page, which title does?
It's the title that's going to, it's the the page title that it will appear at the top of Chrome or whatever browser you're in. So,
okay. So that would come directly from when you build it on
exactly.
the back end,
Exactly.
not what you customized it to show
Yep.
on the page.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they don't have to match, which is good. I mean,
Right.
previously they had, but with the addition of the meta tag module, you can customize, and that way, if you want to say one thing on the page itself, you can say something else in the page title
Okay.
for crawlers. So to take a look at how that appears, you'll see if I search GW, and I'd recommend, I don't know about what you guys use, but I use Chrome typically, and I'll use an incognito window, which whenever I'm doing this kind of work, so that I see what anybody would see, as opposed to Google knows your past, your whole history of sites you visited, and knows what you're interested in. So it's going to spit out different results based on what you've done in the past. So using an incognito window or the equivalent in other browsers will allow you to see what the average user would see. So if I type in GW, I will get George Washington University. What's important to note is that it's bolded. So the content that's keyword optimized within your title and within your meta description will be bolded in somebody's search results if they search those keywords. So it jumps out at people, obviously. And now this is the Google Knowledge Graph information. And I'll get into this a little bit more, but this is where social media and other websites become vital to your SEO. Now that Google's looking at the entire landscape, they're pulling in Wikipedia, they're pulling in Google Plus posts, they're pulling in social media. So being on top of all of that stuff helps your SEO as well. And I mentioned it earlier, but if you do a search for DC colleges, this is what appears. You get this rotator at the top of the page that includes a lot of information. Well, it's pulling in stuff from various places. But especially with geolocated searches, they're trying to give results like this that allow people to just quickly scroll through all of the things that they think they're searching for. They do this a lot with restaurants. If you say like restaurants in Austin, it'll spit out a whole ton at the top here. What is interesting is that recently, prior, they used to have that rotator at the top, and then all the schools and colleges were listed underneath. They've gotten rid of that. They don't want to duplicate now, so now they spit out actual articles and other things that talk about the broader topic. So you get an idea of just how important keyword by location is. I don't know if anybody's doing any Google AdWords or advertising in general, but you can see that there's a real opportunity with geolocated searches. So in the ads per query, you'll see that there's 11% growth in EDU in general, but EDU stuff that's tagged by location, only 4% growth. The cost per click is actually down for geolocated searches, or geolocated ads. And there's actually more clicks. So there's a real opportunity, and again, it just reiterates always thinking of our location. We have a pretty great location, so it's a nice way to be able to improve your SEO, both paid and organic. Yeah.
I have a quick question about geolocation. So is the search, the geolocation based on the user's location, or is it based on the search terms that have a geographic component?
It's based on the search terms.
Okay.
So if they're looking specifically, and like the group that I showed earlier, we know a lot of people are just, they're interested in DC colleges. We know that even, families come and they visit Georgetown, GW, and AU sometimes. So that's the competition. And
So
they're searching the same way.
Because I have seen some search results that are based on your location, like they know I'm in DC and I'm searching for like cafe. And
Yeah.
so I wasn't, for our audience, obviously a student in Ohio, I want to make sure that if they type in DC colleges, they are still seeing us, even though they're in Ohio or China or wherever.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know, I mean, I think I've seen that as well, but I know that they're doing more in mobile for people, like to try and know where people are and serve them different results based on where they know they are. But I would focus far more on people having searches that have a city or area tagged. So optimizing your page content is the next step in good SEO. So it used to be that it was all back-end stuff, and you didn't have to worry about your page content aside from having some keywords in there throughout. But now Google's learning, and they're trying to serve more valuable content to users. So it's key that you write in plain language, write like your audience writes when they search for you in Google. That can be kind of difficult when, your audience might not write beautifully. So there's a balance there in writing well, but also writing in plain language and in the language they might use. There's also the trend on Google is far less actual keywords. The way people used to search was George Washington University, that's it. Now they search full string, they ask questions. They've searched like full strings of words. It's no longer just like I'm thinking in 3 keywords. So really understanding how they search. Again, keyword phrases in your title and subheads. Use keywords throughout your page content. And then one thing that is probably the toughest, and I see a lot of click here's throughout content. That's a missed opportunity. Never use click here when you're linking out to stuff. What that'll do is Google will think you're an expert and click here. Google's going through and looking at what you're linking to and using that as a way to evaluate what you're an expert on. So taking a little piece of content from our site, in the second graph you'll see, you could say click here to use Google Analytics to find the keywords people use to discover your site. What would be better is you can use tools like Google Analytics and link to Google Analytics to open in a new window to find the keywords people use. Even better, include 2 keywords in one link. Use tools like Google Analytics to find keywords and Google Trends, link to both. Google will start to see you as somebody who is an expert on Google Analytics, Google Trends, keywords. It sees all those signals. So you're missing the opportunity if you're using click here. From Google, for your site's internal links, make sure you use anchor text and alt text that's informative, compact, and avoids repetition. So I feel like I'm just saying the same things over and over again, but the way they are really hammering it home that it has to be valuable, it has to be informative, and it's got to be short. One great thing that can help is your social media. And it's beyond Twitter and Facebook, but other sites that you can use, blogs, Wikipedia, knowing what's on your Wikipedia page. I'm talking about social media broader than just the ones we put out content on a daily basis. So this chart, I think, captures really well how social media can help you. So if you create quality content, the content gets shared and liked, which Google's noticing, and it starts bumping up your value on search results. You get more subscribers, the community supporting the site engages more, and you grow even more. You get a bigger reputation. The site authority in search engines gets pushed up, and again, you continue to grow more. So one thing that I know I talked about it earlier, but your knowledge graph on the right. That's what it's called in Google. This appears right next to your links, the regular search results. But it incorporates a lot of different things. They've started pulling in from various places. So what used to be called Google Places is now called Google Business, is what's spitting out the map at the top of your search results. I've had a lot of people ask questions about this and find problems with this, and that they don't know who set up the Google Place ages ago, and the content that's being pushed, like pulled into search results via Google Places might have a wrong phone number, might have the wrong address. So really knowing what's in Google and Google Places, Google Business helps you. And if you notice that there are errors, there is a link that says like give feedback, and you can click on that and contact Google. I wish I could say it was really easy to get it changed, but it's not. You can submit something and hopefully, and then maybe tell everybody you know to also click give feedback and tell them it's wrong and give them the correct answer or the correct number or whatever. That's one way to do it. You can say, I am the admin for this page, and then you will contact them and they'll tell you that they'll send you a postcard within 3 weeks. Yes, Google sends postcards. And with a code that then when you get the code, you can go in and become an admin by using the code. I don't know. It's very strange. It's more likely to get changed if you know somebody at Google or if you get enough people to put in the feedback. Underneath that, you'll see data. You'll see information about the school. That's being pulled from Wikipedia. So I don't know how many people are Wikipedia experts here. I know I'm not on there regularly. I mean, I'm looking at it regularly. I'm not an editor regularly. But Wikipedia has a very tight community, and they know marketers. When marketers pop in and just edit stuff, it'll often not get accepted. So knowing what's in your Wikipedia page, referencing it, knowing the source material, and being very thorough if you try and make an update to Wikipedia, it's also important for your search results, as this shows up right there on the right. There's also a lot of recent data that international parents in particular do a lot of the research for students when it comes to universities, and they will use Wikipedia as the #1 source of information. Finally, Google+. Nobody's on Google+. Nobody's paying attention to Google+, but Google likes Google+. So as you'll see at the bottom, we update Google+ once every few weeks with news. Now, we might do it more, but we noticed about a year ago that whatever content you post on Google+ started showing up in this knowledge graph at the bottom. We get 115,000 searches for a GW-related keyword every week. So 3 weeks of having this content appear in the search results for us is just a nice piece of marketing to add to it. We typically will find a post that is a real core value of the university or some great news that we want to share and let it sit there for about 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, it'll disappear. So you want to try and refresh that regularly. We also are always graphic. We use graphics or images because they'll show up like this. Otherwise, the text kind of gets lost. But we found with everything in social media that using an image or a graphic is going to do better anyway. Another really important thing for social media is building links. So Google is really looking at whether you're an authority on any topic or what people are searching for. And a great way to do that is to build links. So get more people linking to your content. And that's often done through social media. If you launch something or you have some big news, outreach to your community to get people to link back to you will really help your search results. Creating a blog, a Tumblr, a Twitter account that is valuable to your audience will also help to build links. And we're starting a blogging platform. It's under contract, but there's more news on that to come. But that kind of thing can really help. Now, faculty bloggers is a really good opportunity if faculty are experts in a topic. If they start blogging and commenting on other blogs that are, considered experts across a given topic, that'll help build your links and build your value for Google. Be newsworthy. So again, when we find in our social media, if everybody's looking at a certain topic, if everybody's thinking about a certain topic at a given time, if you have a voice in that, it'll really push up your engagement and push up your SEO. And finally, along those same lines, create content that inspires viral sharing. Not easy to go viral, quote unquote, but just getting regular engagement with the content you put out is really, really important. And much of that is about being timely and visual. One key thing I wanted to throw in here is your metadata is important for social media as well. So if you have a good page title and a good description, that's what on a given page that you're sharing, that's what's going to get pulled into your social media when you try and share it. Facebook now and LinkedIn allow you to edit that, so you can go in and change the headline, change the description. Google Plus doesn't, so whatever is in your metadata is what's going to get pulled in and shared. So some key takeaways, as I've said, is you have to know your users. You have to write like they talk or they search. You have to provide valuable content for them. Always be providing the content that they might be looking for on your site. And sweat the details. I know it's really tough when you've finished a page and you're ready to publish it, but those little things at the end make a huge difference. And then key resources for you, and I went through these, but Google Analytics, Google Trends, Google Keyword Planner are all tools you should familiarize yourself with. Google Analytics, if you're not that familiar with it, has a lot of really good tutorial content on the site. I think they call it Analytics University, but there are videos and lots of content you can go through to teach yourself that. Google Trends and Keyword Planner, just play around, get to know it. It will really help. And Moz.com, they're really the leaders in SEO, and all of their content is good. They're great forums, and there's the SEO, what they call a beginner's guide, which is more like a beginner's guide for people who eat and sleep, breathe SEO. It's about 60 pages, but it's very thorough and really, really useful. And that's what I have. Any other questions? No? Yep.
I'm kind of new at all of this, but if I'm putting an alt description for an image,
Yep.
like a lot of what I'm doing is writing biographies and stuff, so normally I just have their name in that. If you're
Yep.
talking about pulling keywords into it, how broad should I be getting, or should I be sticking to that first?
Definitely have their name. If there's anything beyond that that is naturally going to fit in there, I would add it. It's more about, again, it's now about being natural. So if you just shove keywords in there, it's no benefit to you. But if I can't think of an example, but there's a reason you wrote about that person. So if you have their name and then the topic they're an expert on or something along those lines, that will help boost.
Should I have punctuation in that?
Yeah. Yep.
So going back to Drupal and the native tags
Yep.
feature that it has, you mentioned that before the title of the page and what go into that tag section
Yeah.
were supposed to be the same. Now we have an option to change them. So I was thinking, can you give us an example in which, I mean, why would you want to change it, essentially?
You really don't have to. The only instance I can say you would maybe want to change it is if you want a little bit more room in your page title for the meta page title at the top of the browser, versus if it's something in your navigation where you don't want to use that many words. That might be a reason to change what shows up in your navigation. Any other questions? And I'll hang around for a bit if you have questions you want to ask.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
So all of this is great, and I can see how it helps, let's say, GW overall, or maybe admissions, or financial aid, or whatever. But so I work. I mean, I can see for the broader office, but I work very specifically on a program. Dasha's been very kind to help me through this. So it's a very specific thing. It is for GW people, and it does include alumni. So how can SEO help essentially something that's very narrow in its own setting?
I would say it could help even more in that you know your audience better. So just knowing, is it business plan
Yes,
competition? Okay. So you probably know what they're searching business, or business plan. So knowing those keywords and knowing other things that go with that, entrepreneur, other venture capitalism, things like that, it's going to help. It doesn't matter that you're within GW in a smaller program. There are plenty of people who are probably they may be searching GW and business plan, and you want to get them. But then you can look broader and think about, okay, maybe there are people who are in DC and interested in being an entrepreneur, and they're not at GW, but you still want to reach them. So just thinking about who might be searching for you, and it doesn't matter if you're, a program. Yep.
I was going to add to what John said. We are at the School of Public Health, and we find that a lot of our students don't even use our navigation. They go straight into Google. So if they've maybe heard about your program or they vaguely remember it, they may not come to, say, the main business website and navigate through. They might just go straight to Google and type in those words. So it does help you, even if your audience is an internal audience, because a lot of people just don't use the navigation.
Yeah. And that's something like in our user research that we've done on certain websites. When we talk to students, when we survey them or interview them, almost every single one of them says they don't go to the GW homepage and then navigate from there. They all just go to Google and search. They don't even bookmark much. They really just Google everything. Yep.
So I work at the engineering school with Office for Admissions. So what you're telling me with SEO, each of my pages, if they're like specific to say nanotechnology, blah 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 blah, I should use those. I need to use those keywords in my research and stuff. Okay.
Not the blah 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 blah.
Well, that's how it's supposed to be, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you definitely can on a page by page basis optimize all of them.
Optimize all of them.
Yep.
So is it still the goal of SEO then to reach like #1 on the top spot in the search engine?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the end goal is still the same. It's very, very different now, but the end goal is still to be that first one on people's eyes when they, in the search results, when you.
And also the one that shows
search.
up for the knowledge graph, right? Because
Well,
not all the like results show. It's only the first one that shows
Yeah,
up for the knowledge.
I mean, it depends, like I said, if it's geotagged, then they'll have that rotator. But most searches, if they're not geotagged, aren't going to be in a rotator like that. You'll just have what is your typical search result. But yeah, you want to be #1 there. Another way to be #1 is to be in the news. So media relations is a big part of this as well. That I'm not covering. Even if in a prior life I was in media relations. All right. Thank you all.